Hello biology students, and welcome to video 6 in the genetics unit. So in video 6, we're going to be talking about what's called sex linkage. So as a little bit of a review, remember last unit we talked about how there are two types of chromosomes. So the first type is autosomes, and these are chromosome pairs 1 to 22, and these carry, just regular genes that dictate characteristics in your body. And then you have a 23rd pair of chromosomes called the sex chromosomes, which are XX in biological females and XY in biological males. And these chromosomes carry genes that determine your gender. However, one thing that we didn't talk about is the fact that the sex chromosomes actually have other genes that are completely unrelated to gender. So therefore, in the genetics unit so far, we've been talking about traits like eye color, hair color, that are all autosomal. They're all on the autosomes. However, there are some genes that are on the sex chromosomes, and we call these genes sex-linked genes. So genes that are on the sex chromosomes we call sex-linked. The X chromosome, which is found in both males and females, is much larger than the Y chromosome, so therefore it has a lot more genes. And most of the time, when we're talking about genes being sex-linked, we're usually talking about them being on the X chromosome. There are some genes on the Y chromosome, but they are much fewer there. Okay, so because females have two X chromosomes, that means any gene that's on the X chromosome, females have two copies of it, just like the autosomes. However, because males are XY, they only have one X chromosome. If for every gene that's on the X chromosome, males only have one copy of this gene, which means if they have the recessive allele, they're going to show the recessive phenotype for that sex-linked trait. So let's look at an example. So in flies, eye color is on the X chromosome. So we're going to denote this. We're going to write an X and then a capital letter if the fly has the dominant allele, which is the allele for red eye color. And then we put an X with a little r if they have white eyes. Now the reason we do this, the reason that we include the X here is because this indicates that the gene is on the X chromosome. So I've also got a couple crosses. If I have a white-eyed male, well, males, we know, are XY, okay? And if they're white-eyed, that means this male must have the lowercase r, the recessive allele. So in this case, the gametes of this white-eyed male are going to donate to its offspring. It can either donate X sub r, superscript r, or Y. We don't put the trait on the Y chromosome because the Y and X chromosome carry different traits. And then this male is being crossed with a homozygous red-eyed female. So this genotype is going to be R, capital R, and then X, capital R, because they're homozygous for red. So this is my female's genotype. So you can see the offspring. If this allele and this allele combine, I'll get a red-eyed female. That symbol right here means female because there's two X's. I can get a red-eyed male because I only have the capital R present and there's a Y. I can get another red-eyed female or another red-eyed male. So let's try another one. So now if I have a red-eyed male over here, we know males are XY. And in this case, if it's red-eyed, we know we have the dominant allele. If I have a heterozygous red-eyed female, well, females have two X chromosomes, and if they're heterozygous, it must be one capital and one lowercase r. So you can see the male is right here, the female is right here, and in this case, if this allele and this allele combine, I'm getting a homozygous red-eyed female, a red-eyed male, a heterozygous red-eyed female, and a white-eyed male. So in humans, sex-linked traits are found on the sex chromosomes. We already know that. They're mostly located on the X chromosome because the X chromosome has more genes than the Y chromosome does. And these traits are, if they're a disorder, they're usually recessive. So there are several disorders that the gene for them is X-linked. These include hemophilia, which is when you lose the ability to clot your blood if you get a cut. Muscular dystrophy, which is when you get your muscles deteriorate and break down, and also color blindness. So these are all things that are recessive, which means you have to, have the recessive trait to have the disease, and they're on the X chromosome. Now, because males only need one copy of the recessive allele to show the trait, and females would need 2 copies, these diseases are expressed at a much higher frequency in males than females. So to kind of reiterate that point, males have a higher incidence of things like color blindness and hemophilia because they only have one X chromosome, which means they only have to inherit one copy of the recessive allele to show that phenotype, where females, on the other hand, would need to receive the disease-causing allele from both parents to have 2 recessive alleles to show the phenotype. So that's it for video 6, and I'll see you in video 7.